be pretty standard until we get to that special attack. So 75 hit points, attack, and defense, but then 125 on that special attack means we're going to be able to put out good amounts of damage, potentially, and then we just go to 95 special defense and 40 on the speed. So very slow Pokemon, not really looking to outspeed, but doesn't have really tank stats either, so that can be problematic. And with the 75 base hit points, pretty much the special defense isn't really anything extra. That Psychic type Pokemon do tend to have a higher than average special defense, but really this just means we get to survive an extra special attack if it packs a bit more of a wallop, but we're still at threat for getting neutrally KO'd if we're not investing into our hit points. However, with that low speed, we probably are, so 2-hit KO Pokemon that has a pretty good special attack. We got typing, Pure Psychic type. We've seen a lot of Pure Psychic type for the 5th generation, and we should know it by now. Bug, Ghost, Dark, Weakness, Resistances with Fighting and Psychic, no immunities, and a lot of neutral hits. That's pretty much going to be it. Hopping into Pokemon Showdown, we're going to see how to use Beheeyem, and that's mostly as a Choice Specs attacker, but man, this Pokemon can really bring on some pain because of the Analytic ability. Pokemon's attacks have 30% more power if it's last to move in a turn, so it's like a Life Orb amount of damage on your ability, which means we get to run Choice Specs as our damage, and that's going to be pretty powerful. So 125 special attack with a modest nature, or quiet if we just want to make sure we underspeed for that analytic. That's definitely an option, is going to be really nice. 382 special attack. So suddenly, very high amount of special attack, getting tons of boost, and that means our Psychic is going to be very high amounts of damage, and has some good one-hit KO potential on a neutral hit. After that, I just like Hidden Power Fire as our coverage options from there. Don't want to get for Hidden Power, there's a lot of other moves that you can put right here. Does have decent coverage, but it isn't really varied coverage. That Hidden Power Fire is going to be nice though, because Psychic, you're resisted by Steel, and if you run to a Pokemon like that, you're just going to be able to do tons of damage, but a Poison Grass type Pokemon's still going to get hurt by the Psychic, so that's kind of breakdown here. And then we have Signal Beam. Signal Beam is interesting for sure, because you're going to be super effective to Dark type Pokemon, but you are going to be taking a hit first, which is why this hit point investment really kind of matters. I did the math, a Life Orb, Timid, Protean, Greninja, Dark Pulse won't one-hit KO you, but then Signal Beam will absolutely destroy that Pokemon in return, so those are the kind of damages and the trades that we're looking at right there, and as long as we're not like switching in and taking a hit first, Beheeyem in a neutral scale can do really well, so super effective hit, 2-hit KO, neutral effective hits are going to be like 3-hit KO realms, maybe a bit more depending on what it's going to be, as long as it's like a not incredible power hit, but at the same time we still have to worry from Chichen, just hang stronger and heavy damage could be a big problem, or a time of Pokemon. They have Choice Specs and Choice Art, or Choice Band, and a lot of boosting behind its damage. Does put us at threat. That is we can hit, we blow it, and we try to trade 1 for 1 or better. And then we have coverage. Coverage can be what you want. You can Dribble to give you a nice little bit, but then you also have Thunderbolt, so that's something you can consider as well. It's mostly preference what your team needs. They give about the same amount of super effective hits, and between all of these, you're not going to have any resisted hits, so you're going to be able to hit any Pokemon neutrally and get a lot of damage on top of them. So Beheeyem's going to be pretty solid for that. Since it's a slow Pokemon, why not use Trick Room? Trick Room means we can run that Life Orb, but we do lose our Analytic because now we're not the slowest thing on the field with that Trick Room, because it's about moving last in turn, not having lowest speed. Now if it was adjusted to lowest speed, then Analytic Pokemon would get a new kind of realm of damage in Trick Room, but that we don't have that, so it's just going to be Trick Room. And then I was thinking with the Trick Room we can go Charge Beam, so that way we make up for the damage. Now we're putting the 30% on our item and then 50% from a Charge Beam stack, and then it's kind of the same thing. This time we have Trick Room. Takes a little bit more to set up if you're going against an opponent set up Pokemon, or if you are in that 3-hit KO realm because of your hit point investment, then it really doesn't matter. Trick Room, Charge Beam +1, and now you go and destroy everything with that Psychic, or a Signal Beam. This is again, we're getting to an interesting position on that Signal Beam because we're still going to be resisted by Steel type Pokemon, like Charge Beam isn't a crazy amount of damage for that, but we are going to be able to obliterate Dark type Pokemon, we're going to hit very powerfully neutral on that Psychic, and we also have Trick Room options that, you know, say we knock out Pokemon, they bring in something that's going to heavily resist us or really threaten to knock us out, then we just switch into a slow Pokemon, and singles Trick Room, very real possibility with Beheeyem, so that can be, yeah, that can work out pretty well. So that is Trick Room, Charge Beam, they get a couple turns of sweeping, and with Life Orb and that Charge Beam boost, going to be pretty nice. As for the ability, Synchronize, the only thing that makes sense here, so a lot of these are doubles ability, so yeah, if you get burned or poisoned or paralyzed, then they get the status, and that could be pretty cool. On that, we also have it to where double battles. Beheeyem's really good, it has telepathy, so you set up Trick Room and you can have your ally Pokemon explode or something, and you're going to be safe from that. They can be using Discharge, Earthquake, whatever. Beheeyem can just kind of deal with it, and that's going to be pretty nice. Now you can either go for full hit point, full special attack investment, and just play the damage with a Life Orb. Now that is going to be kind of risky because, you know, you have 2 Pokemon potentially hitting you, so your Life Orb isn't the best option, but at the same time Focus Sash, you're a little tankier than needing a Focus Sash, so kind of whatever there. As for the nature, if we are running Trick Room, we are going to need that quiet nature, and Beheeyem gets Gravity. So there's a lot of Gravity combos out there. Gravity into Hypnosis is pretty strong, Gravity into Blizzard, Gravity into whatever doesn't have perfect accuracy. You can set that up with a Beheeyem, and since it's really slow, Gravity will most likely apply before that Pokemon gets going, and then you can kind of do whatever. That also gives you damage options. Like, okay, maybe just Trick Room into Psychic. Now you're throwing out pretty threatening Psychic damage, and that's 2-hit KO realm. So that means if you have a Pokemon using Earthquake, then using Earthquake and you landing that Psychic, that's going to be a KO, and then you don't have to worry about one of your opponent's Pokemon hitting you back. A lot of Trick Room Pokemon that are playing under that Trick Room are going to be slow, but still have a lot of damage. So just things to consider, and then you can run coverage. Energy Ball, there's some rain teams out there, so I say those super effective on the large type Pokemon or something like that. Then the rest is just going to be like damage and playing up. Items, Mental Herb to make sure you get your Trick Room off. Kind of obvious we see Beheeyem might think Mental Herb, if not just like bulky attacker. That's something you might see. That's kind of really all I can think about it. Citrus Berry, maybe protect with some leftovers if you're not running Gravity, then you get the protect on, and that can work with leftovers. Just get a little bit of heal, maybe cause you to survive. But there's also Ally Switch. So Ally Switch is actually a very, very ridiculous move, and it has a huge amount of potential power. The idea behind it is switching places with your ally. So, oh, I'm going to hit a super effective move. Nope, you switch it around, and then you're going to get a lot of damage. This actually works pretty well with Aegislash, I've seen, because you can keep your Aegislash in Blade form, swap it around, and then that Blade form Aegislash now does damage while Beheeyem takes the damage. So it also works against a Pokemon that's like a fighting type or something, weak against what Beheeyem resists in a way, and that's kind of what you can do. So Ally Switch, I will say, it's not an easy strategy. That you have to play it a lot. You have to understand how it works, you know. Pokemon like Hawlucha can use it, Pokemon like Beheeyem use it. There are a good amount of Pokemon get Ally Switch, and there are different strategies for each one. So it's very, very niche level play, but if you understand it, really invest a lot of time to understand how your opponent reacts to it. You know, you use it once and you don't use it again. Maybe they'll just misplay on themselves. They think, oh, that Pokemon's going there, it doesn't, and now you get a free turn to attack with both Pokemon, and it's really just getting super inside your opponent's head. At the same time, you might overpredict, underpredict, get outpredicted. It's something really weird, but it can also work out really well. So take some practice, and that's kind of all there is to ally switch. It's really, really cool, but something very special. Now for the last Beheeyem, it's really interesting because he gets cosmic power, so you're going to boost your defense and special defense, you run max hit points, max defense, go with that calm nature. Interestingly enough, it's going to give you a perfect split between your defenses, so then we just use cosmic power once or twice, and we gain stats, and then we can recover. The greatest thing is when a Pokemon has a defensive boosting move and some form of sustain, so you give this bad boy some leftovers or citrus berry. I feel citrus berry works in this situation because cosmic power, you take damage, cosmic power, you take damage, citrus berry activates cosmic power, and then it should give you that free turn, so now you take damage, recover, you're really close to full health, and then you can do whatever. Now Beheeyem gets access to the nasty plot, so then that lets you go into psychic, and that's pretty much it right there. So nasty plot going to boost a lot of stats, so use that twice, I would think. That's going to give you a 3 times to your special attack, and then you just go and steamroll your opponents with the psychic, and for this you will want the analytic, so 30% on all that nasty plot boosting, and just really big amounts of damage while being that. But here's the problem, you get move slot syndrome. That psychic, they bring in dark type Pokemon, you're kind of in trouble, but if they bring in dark type Pokemon, then you're just in trouble anyways. So best case scenario is that, you use cosmic power, they switch in the dark type, and then you go, okay, I'll just switch out. Your citrus berries and proc, still have full health, you really just lost a turn of cosmic power, and a little bit of advantage from your opponent switching out, but then you just play a switch game. But once your opponent is out dark type Pokemon, you bring in this Beheeyem, you go for that setup, you get 1 free cosmic power. Even if they're hitting you super effective, that's what the citrus berry for. You get cosmic power, now turns into a neutral hit, find 1 more cosmic power, then you out-recover them, set the nasty plot, and you go for the sweep. So that's what Beheeyem, guys. If you guys enjoyed the video, Beheeyem is going to be, just outright huge special attacker, can try to set up a single trick room, double trick room with a lot of really different gimmicks, and then just the setup. So it has a lot of different things, not the best stats. So this Pokemon got a boost like 10 to 15 in either defense. Might get really scary, maybe plus 10 on hit points too. If it got an evolution or a mega, very scary things could happen. That's all we see for Beheeyem. So if you guys enjoyed the video, I hope you all have a nice day. Thank you for watching.
Oh my gosh, you followed? Here you go, an iPhone for you and your friend. But wait a minute, if you share this live to your friends and family, you see the llama and...
Map Wolfpack, Verlisify says how to use Ampharos and Mega Ampharos. So the stats are actually pretty nice to look at. The only thing you have to worry about is not being faster than your opponent, and that can be worked around in many ways as we've seen before. Or since you're just bulky enough, you just take the hit and then you deal a harder hit back. So 115 special attack is going to pair fairly nicely with a 90 hit points, which is also going to scale as you get a Mega Evolution, and then 85 defense and 90 special defense. So really all those stats are right where you want them to be. You have good durability, you have a good offensive chance to hit. I mean, it all plays out really nice. Now I didn't do the stats on Mega Ampharos, but just imagine more special attack defense and special defense. Plus speed too. That actually works out pretty well. So it is really nice to look at. And then we also have Ampharos' typing. Base Ampharos is going to be electric, and Mega Ampharos is going to be dragon and electric. So pretty much you get a dragon stab and dragon pulse on Ampharos, and then you gain a weakness to ice, fairy, and dragon. So the trade-off makes you a little bit more susceptible defensively, but at the same time you are getting offenses, you are getting a little bit more coverage, and Ampharos becomes a fabulous dragon type. I mean, you really can't complain at all about that one. So hopping into Pokemon Showdown, we can just kind of see that Mega Ampharos, it just wants to hit really hard and try to do the most damage that it can. So after looking at a couple of sets, I start to realize that Ampharos does have one big problem, and that's going to be coverage. That really, you have Dragon Pulse and Thunderbolt, and that's it. That you can do Focus Sash, but I am really against Focus Miss, because what it does is it has 70% accuracy, has a huge amount of power, and does add to your coverage really well. But I mean, the chance to miss could cost your game. Like, you'd rather hit 2 Thunderbolts or 2 Dragon Pulses than miss a Focus Blast and try to land one. It doesn't really work out too well, but it is an option that I did want to bring up. Other things you can do are carry Charge Beam. I think Charge Beam is really good to a degree. You need to be able to survive. Like, if Ampharos becomes a 3-hit KO Pokemon in a scenario, then Charge Beam works out really well. Because the main thing about Ampharos having a 165 special attack, you kind of see this with pretty much any Pokemon that has a special around 150 to 170, or any kind of offense, like an attack or special attack around 150, 170, is that their neutral KOs just don't exist. That they're so close. I mean, if you use Thunderbolt or Dragon Pulse or on anything, it's a stab, strong neutral hit with a 165 base special attack, but that does like 80% of most Pokemon's health. And it's just so frustrating close to being enough to KO, which is why I like the idea of Charge Beam. After the Charge Beam, now your neutral hits are starting to KO. Now you're getting that setup that you need. But the thing is, Ampharos is slow. That if it uses Charge Beam, goes into Thunderbolt, sure, that's a KO, but the next Pokemon's going to be cleaning you up because you're at so low hit points. So this is why you're looking for that potential 3-hit KO kind of scenario, because agility, use agility, now you're faster than your opponent. Use Charge Beam, 70% chance to get the boost. If you do get that boost, well, now you can pretty much sleep off Dragon Pulse and Thunderbolt, and that works out really well. You can also carry a hidden power if you don't want to play that risky game with, why am I using Charge Beam? But it does make it to where it puts you in a lot of neutral hit KO scenarios. Now, after you get that survival, you'll be good to go. And then, for hidden powers, you don't really need ice as much. It looks like that hidden power grass could work out if you want to take out like Ampharos, or not Ampharos. You want to take out Swampert and Pokemon like that. Power Fire. Power Fire is going to be pretty good for cleaning up a certain amount of Pokemon as well. And then you can just kind of look at the way the stats break down. To get the agility on your side, though, you need that Timid Nature. Timid Nature, you're going to have to invest 228 points into your speed, I believe. Yeah, that's going to be like the lowest possible amount. I just want to make sure, because if you went into like say 32, you're still at 103, so you're just kind of wasting points right there. So 228 is where you're going to want to be at, and that's going to make you outspeed 135 base speed Pokemon. And then you still have a high amount of the special attack that if you are using Charge Beam, you don't need the Modest Nature, because even with the Modest Nature, you're still not finding a lot of neutral hit KOs. So it is good to just get that little extra boost, get it to where you need to go. And this is going to be fairly standard Ampharos. You are durable, you are tanky, and then you can just kind of play it off from there. Now Mega Ampharos does also have a lot of other things that it can use. Cotton Guard makes it very strong, and with this I was thinking more for doubles that you can just kind of protect, set up a Cotton Guard, and hide around. Now since Ampharos does have such a low speed, we can either look at agility or we can look at Trick Room. In Trick Room, first turn you protect, keep Ampharos safe. You set up the Trick Room with a Pokemon like Romatise. That Pokemon sets up Trick Room really reliably, like a really reliable Trick Room setter. There's many out there. So when you get your Trick Room off, and then now you can use Cotton Guard. Now you're not going to be taking too much damage, and you're throwing out huge Thunderbolts, Dragon Pulses. That was a little bit of chip damage from Dazzling Gleam. Now this is a modest KO, well not modest, quiet. This is a special attack nature KO on a pretty decent scale. While you also still have protect out plays, you still have defensives from a Cotton Guard. It can work out really well, and that's kind of what you're going to want to run on Trick Room. Now here's where the Ampharos sets start getting a little crazy, because Ampharos does have some really cool tools that does have those good defenses. It does have a lot of things on its side that make it want to be really strong. But then at the same time, it just doesn't have a moveset, because a lot of electric type Pokemon, I feel like they are gated by just having an electric type move and maybe one coverage move like Single Beam or something. If Ampharos didn't have Dragon Pulse, it wouldn't get any usage, because now it's not getting the stab, it's not getting all these things that it needs. So we can look at Chesto Resto, and on Ampharos it can be strong because Ampharos gets access to Cotton Guard. Cotton
Guard is one of the best defensive moves in the game. Raises your defense by 3. First time you use it, you have 2.5 times your defense. Physical attacks just stop hurting you. You can get +6 instantly while your opponent's still trying to step swords into something. So you do gain an edge on your opponent, and they can never outpace you on a Cotton Guard, and it can be a very scary thing to do. So Ampharos also gets static. They make physical contact, which is being resisted by your Cotton Guard. They also have a chance of being paralyzed. So, I mean, the comboing potential is really just huge right there. And then with Chesto Resto, you can make something work. That was thinking Charge Beam. You set up your Cotton Guard, you go into rest, Chesto Berry, and as long as they have physical Pokemon, you're not going to be in too bad of a situation. That, you know, you save Ampharos for that late game, you try to take out as many special attacking Pokemon as possible. So Cotton Guard, if they only have like 2 or 3 physical Pokemon, doesn't matter what those physical Pokemon are, you're going to be pretty set. Use Charge Beam, get 1 or 2 of those boosts. Now your Dragon Pulse hits hard, now your Charge Beam hits hard. So, I mean, Charge Beam still gets stabbed, and it's a good just offensive option. Dragon Pulse, since you're not Mega, it's mostly there just for coverage because it's really all that you have on coverage. Or if you can, you know, you can maybe try to squeeze in some kind of hidden power they get if it does sound like it does provide good coverage. Ice Beam or entire Ice would work in this situation. So I mean, you're doing low damage. At the same time, once your Charge Beam gets at +4, you're still at least 3 hit KOing your opponent, and they don't have the opportunity to 3 hit KO you if they are physical. As for the EVs, Calm Nature, max out your special defense. Your defense is going to go through the roof, high hit points. You're good to go. And then you can kind of do the same things with Mega Ampharos, but then again, you're getting gated by your typing. That Rest, Sleep Talk, that's really good. Cotton Guard, that's amazing. Now you have more special defense than regular Ampharos, much more defense, and you are getting stabbed on Thunderbolt, Charge Beam, anything like that. But here's the problem. Now that's 4th move slot. You have 5 move slots syndrome because Dragon Pulse, oh, that gets walled out by Fairy type Pokemon. Thunderbolt, that gets walled out by Ground type Pokemon. You can still hit hard. You can still set up monstrously. You have the chance of getting walled out, so it does make the set really risky, and it does work out in double battles. Now if you have a Pokemon maybe throwing out some kind of heal pulse, if you have a Pokemon that can use aromatherapy, heal bell, or something like that, then this can actually work. And I can see this as actually a really interesting idea because what you're doing is if you're Rest Sleep Talking, now you can actually set up a Cotton Guard, get some more tanks behind you, and if they have a ground type Pokemon, now you have another Pokemon. But yeah, as long as you're covering the coverage, your ally is just going to be going really well, and then you become an unstoppable tank. Now the problem is, you know, if it's a one-on-one situation at the end of the game and they happen to have a Fairy type Pokemon, you have Dragon Pulse or something like that, it does make it pretty hard. Also, I do like the idea of, you know, Toxic or something, that if they don't have a Steel or a Poison type Pokemon, they eventually get worn down. And again, it's high risk, high reward, but just unkillable. Like, you're just unkillable if it goes off. And then, you know, Ampharos also has some really cool combo potential with Magnetic Flux that raises defense and special defense of allies with plus or minus by 1. Hey, look at that, I got plus. The active ability with plus or minus. I mean, it works on yourself and it doubles, it works on other Pokemon. Pokemon like Dedenne also have plus. Pokemon like Klinklang have minus and Magnetic Flux. First turn, you double Magnetic Flux. Now you're boosting both of their special defenses and defenses by 1, so now you're doubling Ampharos and Klinklang's defenses on that first turn pretty quickly, and you're also giving special attack to Ampharos, who can then Mega and start doing some crazy things. I mean, yeah, you just save that ability to get that one set up on the first turn, and now you're going to be able to throw out some huge special attacks, because I mean, you don't need to boost your defenses too much if they're getting doubled, and then you get the survival from there, and then after that, you know, Dragon Pulse, Thunderbolt, Protect, and it'll take you round out pretty good. After that, you know, if we look at Klinklang a bit, we can talk about Klinklang. There's no G at the first one. Alright, so if you throw on a Citrus Berry, you know, Shift Gear into Magnetic Flux, well, now you have huge defenses, you shift gear, you're doubling your speed, you're gaining just a little bit of attack, so I mean, you can run hit points, you can run like defensive stuff. This is just an example, I haven't really thought about the numbers really too well. You can be able to survive a lot of hits on that, and now all of a sudden, you know, you have some good, I would imagine, coverage. So I just be like, Rock Slide, oh, it doesn't get Rock Slide, alright. Well, the coverage on Klinklang looks like it might be a problem, because I think you don't even get Iron Head, you just have Gear Grind. Gear Grind does go into some crazy realm of damage, and then, you know, some other last kind of move that would work in your favor. But other than that, you know, I think that this is a very strong combo potential that people might not expect, and it could just work out. You know, you have Ampharos that's not taking damage and dealing more damage, you have a Klinklang that's going fast and not taking damage. I mean, you are going to have those points where you are taking 2 turns of setting up, but at that point, you're going to be so tanky that you might just have slivers of health left, and now you're ready to sweep, even with those. So you're kind of living life on the edge, but I see there's a lot of potential to just kind of shut down your opponent really quick once it's gone. So if you guys enjoyed this video, that is how you use Ampharos and Mega Ampharos in Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, and I hope you all have a nice day.
School spirits is the phenomenon that gripped audiences everywhere.
Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlisify, this is how to use Bellossom. And special attack, it's going to have more defenses. So it's weird. When you look at Vileplume, you think that's going to be a tankier Pokemon. And when you look at Bellossom, it's like, oh, that Pokemon's going to be fast and maybe hard hitting. Actually, the stats are kind of opposite. Blossom's the tank. That was weird to say. Anyway, you know, Bellossom does not have too much on the speedy side, doesn't have too much on the offense, but if we play around that tank, you know, Grass typing with that Leaf Seed, with Giga Drain, they are known to be kind of sustaining. At the same time, Grass itself is super, super frail. Like, I mean, look at the weaknesses. Flying, Poison, Bug, Fire, and Ice. It's going to make it very hard to be a tank, because a lot of things are going to want to hit you super effective. And now, you know, since Fairy types are common, Poison is a lot more common, Bug still kind of out there, Fire and Ice are very, like, all those weaknesses are fairly common. You do get 4 resistances, but I feel like the trade-off is not enough for a tank, and it does create some problems. But again, you have the same, so you want to be a tanky Pokemon. It's just weird. I'll be in a Pokemon Showdown, we can look at some example sets, because Bellossom, it's kind of all over the place, because it doesn't have enough true defense to become an absolute, like, tank that you can fall back on, but it can set up pretty well. And then we look at its offenses, as we already saw, it's not going to be able to run away with the offenses, but it can still deal a decent amount of damage. So I was thinking is if we invest in that tankiness and just go for that Sleep Powder. Now, Sleep Powder does have 75% accuracy, which I'm not a fan of, so I was actually wondering, what about Zoomlands? If you go last in turn, which shouldn't be hard because of this low speed, and if you even want to take it on to another level, you can go on Sassy Nature. That way you have absolutely the lowest speed on the field in most situations. That way now your Zoomlands is going to proc on your Sleep Powder, and Sleep Powder I think goes up to like 92% accuracy, so it actually becomes tolerable. It's like a Rock Slide or a Play Rough at that point. So now Sleep Powder is looking reliable. With all this tank investment, you are probably in a 3 KO range, so that means you can drop the Sleep Powder. Now they're Sleep. Use a Leaf Seed. Use a Synthesis. If they still stay asleep, you have a turn of doing Moonblast, then you just get them in a Sleep Powder loop to where they can't one-shot you, so they're going to go to sleep, and now you have a Moonblast and a Synthesis to heal up. So hopefully by the time they wake up, you're at full health and you've done some damage to them, and it can work out like that, but you know, a lot of Grass-type Pokemon are going to want to do this. I think that this is just a different set because I don't really talk about Zoomlands too much because normally I'm trying to stay away from those low moves and like leftovers or something would feel good. But if you have Leaf Seed and Synthesis coming your way, you might as well just be going for that accuracy because if Sleep Powder misses, you're in trouble. And Zoomland says, well, you have a better chance for it to not miss, so I think that counts. And then we look at some other things. I think Bellossom is also going to want to be a doubles Pokemon in Trick Room. So I mean, again, Trick Room with that low speed. We just talked about it. Now we make you one of the faster Pokemon on the field, and Bellossom has some really cool supportive stuff. One of the few Pokemon to get Teeter Dance, one of the few Pokemon to get Grassy Terrain. And one interesting combo that people might not know about is Grassy Terrain plus Secret Powder means that that move is going to have a 30% chance to put your opponent to sleep. So here's how I see the first turn: Grassy Terrain and then Trick Room. If you get that set up, you're in a good position because now you can use Teeter Dance and Protect or something like that, or maybe just Protect and then Teeter Dance on the first turn to try to make your opponents confused. Because Teeter Dance confuses all Pokemon on the field. So if you have an own tempo Pokemon like a Slowbro trying to set up a Trick Room, you can just combo it out right there, and you don't need to worry about the Protect. But if you have like a Aromatisse or another Pokemon that's like a standard Trick Room Pokemon, you might want to have that Protect. You might want to have a Lungberry or something like that. That way you don't get confused. And now your setup is looking really good. Both your opponents are confused. You have Trick Room set up so you're fast, and now you have Grassy Terrain, so you have a 30% chance of putting your opponents to sleep with a decent offensive attack. Now while 80 attack isn't the most insane by most means, but I mean if you hit 2 back-to-back Seed Bombs, that's going to be stab. That's actually looking at putting your opponent close to KO range. So if they hit themselves, you hit them with 2 Seed Bombs. Well, that's probably a KO, and depending on the Pokemon, that can work out really well. Also, Seed Bomb works against Rotom, and it's just going to be a nice thing to carry. But you can also kind of take this on extra levels depending on how you want to do it. Bellossom also is one of the few Pokemon that gets Petal Blizzard. So I mean, Bellossom has a lot of really good moves that very few Pokemon get. But the stats kind of hold it back, but we can still make make it work, which is why we're throwing it in doubles. Double Blizzard. Again, hits all Pokemon on the field. Now, this can combo, like with that Protect, this can just try to make it where you're trying to do as much damage to as many opponents as possible. So my first thought was Sap Sipper. Sap Sipper is going to be really nice to pair up with. So if you have another tanky Pokemon, Go-Go. Sap Sippers, they aren't the most offensive Pokemon, but I mean, giving them free stats while hitting both your opponents can actually work out pretty well. So Go-Go works out pretty well. You can have Girafarig. Girafarig gets Trick Room and Sap Sipper. Even though it doesn't have the greatest stats, it is a combo that if you really want to use Girafarig, Bellossom does have some decent potential if you don't get immediately blown up, because now you get all this crazy setup, and your opponent can't stop you from that point. So it is something to consider that, Girafarig is viable in this situation. And then, Go-Go, Sap Sipper Pokemon. Also, Go-Go's a Grass Spell Pokemon, the only one if Grassy Terrain is activated. Oh, cool, we can use that. The Pokemon's defense goes up by 1.5 times, and also the base effect of Grassy Terrain is Grass moves get a 50% boost. So if you have Grassy Terrain, you're throwing out Seed Bomb, you have Grass Spell making your Go-Go tanky, or if you're using the Sap Sipper Go-Go, there's just damage all over the place, and that's kind of what Blossom's trying to set up. Other than that, though, that's really all that Blossom is going to be capable of. It's just going to be some kind of stally, sustaining grass-type Pokemon, but I do like the Teeter Dance, that it does have some disruptive capabilities as well, and it can do some pretty cool things. So if you guys enjoyed the video, and that's how you use Blossom and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, and I hope you all have a nice day. Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlisify here, and this is how to use Rose Raid. Now, I'm excited because I didn't expect to find as good of strategies as I did for Rose Raid. I saw it, I'm like, well, this Pokemon, it's alright. It doesn't have enough speed to be a hardcore sweeper. It has a really good amount of special attack at that 125 base, and a weird amount of special defense. Like, 105 special defense is really good, and then the 65 defense and the 60 hit points kind of make that not as good, but it's still pretty solid overall. I was just looking, like, if it had more special attack, you could scarf it really successfully, and other than that, I wasn't really thinking too much of this Pokemon. Also looking at its typing, it's a Poison Grass typing. Here we kind of see the Grass Curse come in again, and there's a lot of weaknesses right now. Now, the Grass does help with the ground weakness to Poison, but overall, you're still weak against Flying, Fire, Ice, Psychic. You do get a good amount of resistances, though, but overall, it's going to be a very tough type to make work. However, with the buff that Poison has by being strong against fairies, it's alright. Like, it's not the worst. And then I went and hopped into Pokemon Showdown, I was looking for the sets, and pretty much I just found, like, the most standard set ideas possible. That you go with Timid Nature, you go with Coverage, and that's about it. That you're kind of pretty much looking for a super effective hit. If you don't hit super, you're in trouble. If you get outsped, you're in trouble, and it's not that great. But overall, if you have Life Orb, go for that Timid Nature, try to outspeed anything under 300. Just quite a few Pokemon nowadays, because there's a little more bulk out there. So if you can, like, kind of take out your opponent's sweepers or set up with some kind of sticky web, or play around it, with the right timing, Rose Raid can come in and clean up really good in the mid to late game, and you also just get a good amount of coverage. Energy Ball, high base power at that 90, going to get Stab, Sludge Bomb, again, high base power with Stab, Extra Sensory, and Dazzling Gleam are going to round out your coverage really well. And if you also have the option for it, you can get Hidden Power, and Hidden Power Fire would probably be the best right here. So you can really close out great against a lot of coverage, and it's still very strong. Now, I was also thinking about a couple of other ideas that aren't as standard. Like, you could pretty much go for a Modest setup. Modest Petal Dance with the Person Berry, and just kind of try to blow up anything in your way. This is where the sticky web support can really come in handy. Now, here's where it gets insane. 383 special attack with Modest is this max. Now, 279 speed isn't a lot to talk about, so you could Scarf on this set, which does take away a lot of your coverage, or you could just kind of go for sticky web setup in the Petal Dance and try to just eliminate everything. Now, you are a reasonable 2-hit KO Pokemon as long as you don't get hit super effective, and by most special attacks, you can do pretty well. So by doing so, you might survive. You can 2-hit KO on Petal Dances, you can 1-hit KO cleanups, and if people aren't expecting it, you can kind of round through them really well. Now, here's where Rose Raid also gets a little more interesting, and here's where I start getting excited for the strategies. Now, I was thinking you could go for a really awesome setup, anti-setup Pokemon that, with a good amount of hit point and defensive investment, you can become really bulky. Survive quite a few amount of hits. Like an Adamant Scarf Garchomp using Outrage would actually be able to survive that hit. I think you only take like 75%. So while not enough to completely survive off of, you can endure a hit that strong and a little stronger even. So if we look, you're going to also, like most people aren't going to open up like that. They're going to open up with their own setup, which gives you the opportunity to set up. So we see it, endure a hit, absorb their setup, go for Sleep Powder, go for Leech Seed, and then depending on that, just spikes and toxic spikes. Once you have 3 layers of spikes, your opponent switching in takes a quarter of their health. Once you have 2 layers of toxic spike, they get toxic poison on incoming. So it does create a lot of setup potential. That until they blow it away with defog or they go for the rapid spin, if they're not carrying that, they could be in some real trouble against even 1 or 2 spikes and 1 or 2 toxic spikes while you're putting Pokemon to sleep and getting a good amount of sustain. You are fairly bulky, Citrus Berry's going to give you some health, and you could have up to 3 or more turns depending on how well sleep is treating you to really just set up in your opponent's face as a Rose Raid that they weren't expecting. And then we get into double battles. So I was thinking with doubles, we can go all sorts of crazy. Mega Charizard, Wild Tailwind. We're going to bring Drought, we're going to bring Speed, we're going to bring an insane Rose Raid. I was thinking we can go for the bulk on this one as well. That with this bulk, you're going to have a good amount of hit points, good amount of defenses, and by just going with the Calm Nature, special defense is going to be really high. Cool thing about Drought. Growth in Sunlight actually makes it to where your attack and special attack go up by 2 stages. So you're doubling your special attack, you're doubling your speed, and then you can just go for some monstrous hits. Also, Synthesis heals you for 66% of your health in Sunlight. So now you're going to be hard to knock out. You have Giga Drain sustain, you have extra damage on that Life Orb. So the Giga Drain is kind of compensating for Life Orb, and you also have huge amount potential from Synthesis, Sludge Bomb coverage, and now Charizard is under Tailwind. So you can even run a bulky health Charizard that has special attack at hit points. You're going to be able to endure a lot of hits that your opponents aren't going to expect, and then your speed is still going to be very high. You outspeed, and now you have a monstrous hit backed up by a monstrous Rose Raid potential. And that could be really cool. If you don't want to do a crazy Charizard Watch strategy, Rose Raid is also just a really awesome support. They can support grass types really well with grassy terrain. That grass moves become stronger and restores hit points. So that can work out really well. You can put this next to Go-Go. Go-Go gets Grass Pelt, which boosts its defense, and then you can kind of play it out from there. Or you just kind of use it for yourself and your team. That you're getting 1/16 of your health from grassy terrain, 16th from leftovers, and now you're also going to be able to get sustain off of Synthesis, an 8th from Leech Seed. You can have a Pokemon setting up Sunny Day, that you can have a Chlorophyll Pokemon under this grassy terrain doing extra damage, just going ham and doing all sorts of craziness. You have Sleep Powder support coming in, you have Leech Seed for the drain, you have Synthesis, and like I explained earlier, you get a really good amount of bulk. That Adamant Scarf Garchomp in doubles throwing on Earthquake isn't even doing half of your health. That's actually pretty tanky because like the way that it splits. I mean, they're going to have to double focus fire you. If you don't, you're putting Pokemon sleep, you're getting health back, you're going insane while again your other Pokemon, if it's a threatening enough Pokemon or if it's a supportive enough Pokemon, can really just make your opponent have a bad day. So this is Rose Raid. Like you can actually run a very wide variety of sets. You have high coverage, high damage, decent amount. Like the speed is the only thing holding it back. Like if there, that's why I like the doubles idea with Tailwind. That's why I like sticky web ideas. You can get over that speed. You actually look pretty threatening. Also for the setup one, you can even run it with speed. That you can kind of get as much bulk out of it that you want. Go for the hit points, go for the speed, and then Timid Nature. And I can outspeed most setup Pokemon since they try to be fairly slow. And there's the occasional Scarf Pokemon, but then they're not doing as much damage, so you can endure it. That's when you're just like Sleep Powder, set up, and see what happens. Also when we look at the abilities, Natural Cure is kind of the best thing you got. Technician doesn't really bring too much. Like there's not a lot of things to get boosted by Technician. So at least it's like, oh, I got burned. I have something annoying like Sleep. You can just switch it out, call it good, and from there you're just good to go. So if you guys enjoyed this video, I'm actually very surprised at how strong Rose Raid can be, and I hope you guys are too. And I hope you all have a nice day.
Welcome to the Romulus space station.
Unidentified life form detected.
Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlisify, this is how to use Swalot. So we're going to look at Swalot's typing because my stat animation got all messed up, so pure poison type. Swalot isn't too bad off that we have a weakness to ground and psychic, and that's it. Unfortunately, Earthquake is really common, and as a slower, bulkier Pokemon, it can be hard to set up sometimes against those ground and psychic types, but overall, not the worst to worry about. With resistances, it's just resistant to fighting, poison, bug, grass, and fairy, so you can get a lot of really good switch-ins and setup potential, and it's just nice to have a lot of neutrals and not a lot of weaknesses. Also, cool thing to note about pure poison type Pokemon that I haven't noted before is that if you're using Toxic, it will never miss. So all those evasion, minimized chances, they're going to be able to get Toxic, as well as any Pokemon using Fly or Dig and Dive, any semi-invulnerable Pokemon as well. So poison is really nice to use for these kinds of setup. Now what we're going to do is just hop into Pokemon Showdown and take a quick look at the stats. So Swalot has 100 base hit points. Awesome. And 83 on defense and special defense. So this is going to be a rather tanky Pokemon. Not much on the speed or offenses, so it's just going to be kind of a stallish, toxic-y, burn, outweight Pokemon, yeah, whatever. But it's going to be a pretty good wall, and it works out really well. Now also what makes Swalot awesome is Stockpile. Favorite move, boost defense and special defense by 1. Can use it 3 times, but by then you're too tanky to knock out. So Swalot is going to be, it's also like a premier stockpile Pokemon. That it uses stockpile in the anime. When you look at it, it just kind of, it's one of those main stockpilers, and I think it's really cool. Unfortunately, it doesn't see a lot of play, and we'll kind of talk about the weaknesses that Swalot has. But pretty much your core is going to be going 236 EVs and hit points. That way you have a number that's evenly divisible by 16. So you're getting full leftovers heal when you can. You also want to invest higher into that defense. Well, that's my personal thought, because you're going to see a lot of earthquakes, you're going to see some ground moves, and there's just more physical Pokemon. So it's good to have that little bit of edge against them. And then we also have special defense investment that way. As you're stockpiling, you're getting insane defenses across the board, and you're going to be very tough to knock out while getting a lot of health back from leftovers. Going to flash off the level 50 stats real quick, and now let's talk about the many ways that you can make stockpile Swalot work. So first off, stockpile, toxic, infestation, and rest. You can also go with the Chesto Resto instead of the leftovers, and it's pretty much just going to be the same EV spread. So that's like, if the EV spread isn't different, it's going to be that. For this, you're just going to want any kind of defensive nature, bolt or impish works, and you're going to be really tanky. The idea is you set up 1 or 2 stockpiles, you go into the rest, you wake up immediately, get some more stockpiles, set off the toxic or infestation, rest again, and you're really going to be able to do that rather successfully and not be threatened by too many things. Once you have max stockpiles, you really just toxic and infestation away anything, and you can eventually win. I believe that the way that toxic and infestation combos, your opponent only has 4 turns, and they can't switch out because of infestation, so they're really locked down. Naturally, toxic is going to be weak against steel and other poison type Pokemon, since poison type Pokemon can't be poisoned. But overall, you know, if they're not, even if they are steel, you can infest them even if they are poisoned. So you can do a little bit of damage, and at least at the end of the turn, they might be taking more than you did, and you have to stay on the rest. With the other things you can do, I was thinking about Power Punch, Gunk Shot. Now, unfortunately, Aegislash just purely walls you out on this, but then that Power Punch is going to, you know, you set up your stockpiles, you go into your rest mechanic, and then you start Power Punching. 2 or 3 Power Punches, and Gunk Shot is going to hurt. With this, you need the impish nature, that way you lower the special attack, and think about it. You use Power Punch twice, you're going to have 360 attack, and Gunk Shot is a 120 base power. So it's going to be really awesome. While the accuracy is low, it's kind of the strongest stab move you have, so you're going to be able to output a lot of damage. Now, if you don't want to do that, you can also go with Fire Punch. It's going to give you good coverage between the fire and fighting, and then rest and all that. With this, I was thinking Quick Claw is a very valid option. That because of leftovers and rest and stuff, it's kind of awkward if you're like, I don't know, leftovers is a very good option, but if you're looking for other item options, like you already have Pokemon with leftovers, or you want to throw out Quick Claw, it'd be really nice, because Quick Claw has a 20% chance to activate. That means you can stockpile and get defenses before your opponent, you can Power Punch and get attacks off before your opponent, you can score KOs as a bow sleepy Pokemon that's already tanky and has a lot of stats, and it can be really nice. So you are losing a bit of sustain or some kind of rest mechanics, but it's kind of, if you are anticipating the setup really effectively, this is much better, and it's going to give you a lot of really fast options that can do a lot of damage. And then I was thinking Apricot Berry. We rarely see this, but Swalot has the ability Gluttony. When it drops to half or less, it uses the certain berry. Well, Apricot is one of those berries, and it's going to boost your special defense. That way we can put harder investment into the defenses, and then special defense is going to get boosted. It's also not going to be capped off by the stockpile, and then you can work it out from there. Now this Apricot Berry set works with any of these sets as well. Now I'm also showing a different move set for Curse Amnesia. Curse is going to let you boost your defense really well, and then also get attacks. So it's kind of like Power Punch and the defensive side of stockpile, giving you that also opportunity with Amnesia. Problem is now you only have 1 move to use, and it's going to be Ice Punch as well as having rest. I like Ice Punch because while you can get walled out by a lot of types, it just makes it to where nothing is going to be immune. If you have fire,